Okay, so proportion word problems. So now we're going to be presented a word problem, and we're going to have to take that information, put them into a proportion, then solve. You guys already know how to solve proportions. We did that Monday, Tuesday, and you guys showed me that skill when we did our opener today. So now you're going to take that skill and you're going to apply it to word problems. A couple things you need to know before we start the word problems, though, are a couple of terms. The first one is a ratio. What is a ratio? What's a ratio do? Compares what? Yeah, so a ratio compares two numbers. Okay? So a ratio compares two numbers.
Making people the same or something like that.
Then the second term that you're going to need to know. The second term that you're going to need to know is a ratio of units. So a ratio is a comparison of two quantities or two numbers. What's a ratio of units going to be? So we know a ratio is a comparison of two quantities. Quantities means the number.
More than one.
So a ratio of units is going to be a comparison of two. So, well, what do you think units means? We're doing word problems. When you guys initially started doing word problems and you'd solve for a word problem, what would you always have to put behind your answer? Like what they were talking about, right? Like let's say you're trying to figure out how many people went to the movies with me. Well, you'd write at the end of it, your answer, you put 12 people. Remember? The people would be the units. So, ratio of units.
The number.
Sorry. So, ratio of units is a comparison of two units used in a fraction. So, it's a comparison of two items, two things, two objects. Now, we're comparing them using a fraction because we're making it in a proportion or a ratio form. So, examples. If you're comparing dollars to pencils, I bought 25 pencils for $10. If I bought 25 pencils for $10, would I put the number 25 on the top or the bottom? Bottom, because I'm talking about pencils, right? So 25 pencils go with pencils. For $10, then the 10 would go the top with the dollars. So those are my units I'm comparing. When I drive my car, I go 6. Okay, if we're going to be honest here. When I drive on Interstate 255 to get to school in the mornings, I drive 80 miles per hour. So if I'm saying 80 miles, is that going to go top or bottom? Top. Per hour, how many hours am I saying per hour? How many hours am I talking about? 1 hour. So 1 hour go on top or bottom? Bottom. So then you have miles per gallon. So basically a ratio of units is a comparison of two items, two units using a fraction.
She said she ain't good.
Oh, yeah. My kids tease me all the time because one year I got 2 tickets in a year. And my husband warned him if I got 3 that I'd get in trouble. So the kids are all worried about it. Okay, example number 1. So when I do word problems, I like to underline the information that they give me that I need to know. So in a map of Illinois, 3/4 of an inch represents 12 miles. So 3/4 of an inch represents 12 miles. If it is approximately 9 inches from Belleville to Champaign on the map, what is the actual distance in miles? So, we're going to first put down our ratio of units. ROU stands for ratio of units. What 2 units are they talking about here?
12
So they're talking about miles and
inches.
inches. So our ratio of units, the things that they're comparing, are inches to miles. Okay? Now let's reread our information. In a map of Illinois, 3/4 of an inch represents 12 miles. They're giving us two numbers there, right? So they're saying 3/4 of an inch represents 12 miles. There's our first ratio. There's our first comparison. So my first comparison is, how many inches are they talking about? So is that going to go on the top with inches or on the bottom with miles? So that's going to go on top. So 3/4 over. And 3/4 of an inch represents how many miles? 12. So 12 is going to go on the bottom. So that's what we know. Okay? So that's what we know. Now, the second one is what we need to know. So if it's approximately 9 inches from Belleville to Champaign on the map, what is the actual distance in miles? So what are we trying to find? So we're trying to find the distance in miles. What's the other number they give us, though? It's approximately 9 inches from Belleville to Champaign on the map. What is the actual distance in miles? So we don't know the miles, do we? So what are we trying to find in the second ratio? The miles. So what do we want our variable probably to be? M for miles. So how many inches? 9. So is that going to go on top or bottom? It's going to go on top with our inches. So what you're basically doing is keeping your work organized. So all of your ratio of units, inches, stays on top. Miles stay on bottom. So what do you have now? This should be familiar to you, besides maybe the fraction there. That's a little difficult. But what's this here? What's this called?
Multiply.
No, but what's it called? A proportion. So to solve it, you're going to cross multiply. So these are the steps you know how to do. So we're going to cross multiply. 3/4 times m equals 3/4 m. Then I'm going to cross multiply 12 times 9. What's 12 times 9?
108.
108. Now, if you notice, I put an equal sign between each of my steps. When I'm starting new steps, I'm going to put an equal sign. Oh, that's so small compared to the purple. Okay? So from here, what's the next step you do?
Draw your line of equality.
Okay, so draw your line of equality.
And then circle the variable.
Okay, so I'm going to circle my variable. I'm going to draw my line of equality. Now, how do I get the m by itself? Say it again. Yeah, divide by 3/4. So 3/4 next to an m means to multiply. The opposite of multiply is divide. So we're going to divide by 3/4. So m equals. Now, you guys have the calculator that will do the work for you. When you go to type this in the calculator, which number should you type in first? 108. So you're going to take 108 divided by 3/4. So don't forget to use that fraction button. Or, what'd you get? 144? Exact? Okay. So if we're dealing with a word problem, though, you're going to have to do 144 miles, because that's what we're finding. So when I go to grade your quiz on Friday and look at your worksheet, I want to make sure that you're putting the ratio of units with your answer. So if it is approximately 9 inches from Belleville to Champaign, the actual distance would be 144 miles. How many of you guys remember how to divide with fractions without using your calculator? How many of you guys remember the acronym for dividing fractions without a calculator? So if I have this, you don't have to write this in red. So if I have 108 divided by 3/4, how can I do that without using my calculator?
Don't forget to multiply with the first one and then divide on the second or something like that.
K,
And
F,
Can't see.
KFC. What's that mean?
Could
Keep.
fried chicken.
Yeah, right? Keep, flip, and change. So how do I make 108 a fraction? Put a 1 under it. You guys remember how to do that now?
nah, I forgot
No?
low-key on
All right. You don't have to do all that. You can use your calculators. Okay, let's look at example number 2. Back on task. Come on, gentlemen. Number 2. On average, a particular basketball player makes 7 out of every 9 free throws she takes. So right there is our first ratio of units. So it's our first comparison of 2 quantities. So they're talking about make 7 out of every 9 free throws. Thank you. If she shoots 216 free throws during a season, how many of those would you expect her to make? So we're trying to figure out how many free throws she would make. So the first thing that you're going to write on your paper is ROU. ROU stands for ratio of units. So what are they talking about? What 2 units or what 2 items or objects are they comparing here? Free throws shot, right? And free throws that are made. So we're going to do it like this. We're going to put made and then the total. Does that make sense? So made are the ones she actually made out of the total number she actually shot. So then we're going to do the know. What do we know? What ratio?
7 out of every 9.
So 7 out of every 9. So is 7 going to be my top or my bottom number?
7 top.
And then,
9 got bottom.
so she shot 9, she made 7.
That's not good.
Then we're going to talk about need to know. So for my second ratio, I was only given partial information. If she shoots 216 free throws during a season, how many of those would you expect her to make? So I'm given a number. What number am I going to try to find? So what am I trying to find? How many she should make. So am I trying to find my top or my bottom number? How many would you expect her to make? Top. So this here, if she shoots a total of 216, that's going to go on the bottom. So now we're ready to solve. So we cross multiply, so I'm going to put an equal sign between my proportion and my next step. You're going to take 7 times 216 and get, good, 1,512. Then we're going to take 9 times m and get 9m. From here, you guys know the drill. Circle your variable. Draw your line of equality. How do I get the m by itself?
Divide by 9.
You
Both
get
sides.
168.
Say it again.
168.
Are you right?
It reconnected me. I apologize.
This all good.
So m equals
168.
168. So what does 168 represent? Yeah, so free throws made. Okay, extra credit question. So, ready? In the green, if she made we determined she made 168 free throws out of 216 shots. What percent of those shots did she make? If she made 168 free throws out of 216 shots, what percent did she make?
Ooh, she made like. No, I didn't mean I want you to say that.
How would you find that?
She made 70.
How'd you find that?
I don't know.
Well, what did you do?
She made.
Tell me what you did. You have it.
Oh, 168 divided by 216 times 100.
So basically, you took the fraction and changed it to a percent. So she made 77.7777%, which we'd round up to the nearest whole percent, which would be 78%. Will you put on the clipboard off to the side somewhere Nick's name, and then circle it or do something so I remember to give him his extra credit points? Good. All right, let's look at the last example problem.
78%. Isn't that good?
I think so. It's over half.
She a
All right, example number 3. Okay, how many of you guys are into racing in the Indy 500? I'm going to butcher this name, so excuse me if I do. Ari Lundiek, we're going to just say Ariel. In 1990, you want to try it? Yeah, I'm just not going to say it right.
It's already.
All right. Holds the track record at the Indianapolis 500 when he drove the 500 miles, averaging 13.442 miles every 5 minutes. At that rate, how many miles could he travel in 1 hour? So, Ari holds the track record at the Indy 500 where he drove the 500 miles, averaging 13.442 miles every 5 minutes. This problem is going to be broken off into 2 different questions. So we're going to solve for letter A first. Before we even start letter A, though, what ratio of units did they give to us first? What 2 numbers are they comparing in this first bit of information they gave us? What's the first amount of information that they're giving us here?
Oh,
You drove 500 miles, averaging
13.42 and 442 miles every 5 minutes.
So what 2 units are they comparing? Miles to minutes. So they're saying he drove 13.442 miles every 5 minutes. That's going to be my first ratio of units. Now, so we know this, so we know we're talking about ratio of units. Now, at that rate, how many miles could he drive in an hour? So at that rate, how many miles could he drive in an hour? So we're trying to find what? What are we trying to find? Okay, so we're trying to find the miles he could travel in 1 hour. So they gave us the 1 hour as our second unit. But how are we telling our time here? Are we telling our time in hours or minutes? Minutes. So what am I going to have to change this hour to? Minutes. How many minutes are in an hour?
60.
Okay. So our ratio of units is miles to hour. Well, hours. We said we're going to do minutes. Our first ratio that we know is that he drove 13.442 miles in 5 minutes. And then our need to know, so what information can I plug in the second ratio? Do I know how many miles he drove in the second one? No. So I'm going to try to find how many miles he drove, so my variable will be m. Do I know how many minutes it took? 1 hour, which we transitioned to minutes, which is how many minutes? 60. Because 1 hour equals 60 minutes. We can do it. Actually, let's stop here. Let's stop here.